Right. Oh, right off the bat, I got it on the wrong camera. I thought I fixed all these. Excellent. I'm fiddling around with stuff. All right, welcome to the Mad Poet album release show, album number 66, Schizenoid Paraphrenic. We've been talking about it for a while. Thank you for coming out. This has been a very fun project for me. And a few things to say about that first song. What is going on with my little wireless here? Careful, little Randy. Careful. All right. Everybody be calm. Everything's all right. Obscure Mysticism Cults joining us from YouTube. Says, glorious Saturday. Congrats on the new album. Thank you very much. Glad to be here with it. And I've got Recursive Trauma. That's Sean coming in from Twitch. Hola, right back to you. Good to see you, buddy. Hope you're doing well. Hope that baby's doing well. Hope the whole family is just having a good time over there. And wherever you're tuning in from, thank you very much for being here. Like I said, a couple things to say about that first song. It's called A Slow Descent into Madness. And as I've mentioned a few times when I play the album City of Souls, this is the second time that I have used what's known as a Picardy third, which is where you're in a minor scale, but you end it by playing a major chord. Kind of cool. It's a good feel. It works really well. It's got that kind of cathedral feel to it, is how I like to kind of describe that. Also, the song The Collapsing Wall also has a Picardy third on it. But more than that, more interesting, that sheet music that you saw right at the beginning where the choir came up. Oh, we got Susan coming in from YouTube. She'll be glad to see that I can actually see her comments today. Thanks for coming. I'm about to talk about Susan, as well as Finn, Sean, and Michael. I'm not sure if you were all able to make it, but it's time for me to brag about my awesome students. So the choir, the choral opening, the choral and organ on that is my first time going beyond four-part counterpoint. For those who may not be familiar, counterpoint is a type of composition. Bach is the most famous for contrapuntal work, for counterpoint music. It's a type of music where you take melodies and you combine them in a way that each melody is independent, but they also work together as a team. That's kind of a base way to describe what contrapuntal composition actually is. And so I use counterpoint in various places. A lot with my synths. I'll do some very basic, like two-part counterpoint. And a lot of times my organ intros and stuff will be four-part counterpoint. This is the first time I've gone past 4 parts, and I took it all the way up to 9, which is a kind of a, it's a big jump. I mean, just jumping from 4 to 5 is a big jump. We're jumping from 4 to 9 is huge because it's hard to get those lines to work independently at that point. And so the 9-part portion of it is only 8 measures long, and I probably wrote, the first organ, the original 4-part to it before I decided to expand. Probably took 20 minutes. And then when I went to 9-point, I worked on that 8 measures. I sat here for like 6 hours working each note, because it's like, oh, I changed this, and now that doesn't work. Now, okay, let me change that. Okay, now what happens in the soprano? Okay, now what happens what happens in the organ with that? It's all over the place. And so that was inspired by 4 of my students. I've had 4 students who have gone through a study of counterpoint. The very first one that did it was Susan Smith, who's watching on YouTube right now. And very, very fun thing for both of us, because that was my first time teaching all the way through counterpoint like that. And I had studied counterpoint, but I had never actually gone in and worked it with a student. So we were kind of learning that part of the process together. And then I've had 3 other students since then who have gone through a fairly intense study of contrapuntal music. And so Scott Brabick was my second one. and he's a guy I've known since back in the military days. He and his wife Sharon and I, we've all been friends for about 75 years or so now. It feels like military was a long time ago. Oh, Susan says, really nice intro. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. I know Susan has seen the sheet. She may have heard that before, because I know I've shown all of these students this 9-part thing. They know about it. And then Michael Turner was my next student with that. And he's been a student of mine for, gosh, probably about 7 or 8 years. So Susan is my longest continuous student. She's been with me for over a decade. Michael's been with me for quite a while, 6 years maybe, I don't know, quite a while, 5 to 7 years, somewhere in that range. Very cool guy. He's got some of his own music out. He's kind of a straight ahead rock kind of guy, but he's been working in some different directions with his music and coming up with some very cool stuff. He wanted to really be experimental with some of his current compositions, and it goes by MT Labs on YouTube. Susan Smith goes by Susan C. Smith on YouTube, so these are people you can look up. And then my next student who did this was Finn Hushauer. Hope I'm saying that name right. I actually don't use his last name very often. I see it written all the time. and he's also been with me. We were just talking about this a few weeks ago. He started with me when he's 10. He's 17 now. And so another very long-standing student. Counterpoint is something most students don't get into early. It's not beginner level stuff. You gotta understand your scales already. You gotta be able to do some basic compositions before this stuff's really gonna make any kind of reasonable sense to you. It's fairly highly, even intermediate level students probably aren't going to do real well with an intense study of counterpoint. You can start to get them into it, but it's more of an advanced thing. And it's a really good thing to learn. Finn, he's kind of getting to that level where he's starting to get ready to do some recordings. And so largely with him, we're kind of working on, if you study counterpoint, you will understand almost every aspect of music theory better. Things will make more sense to you. It's very unlikely that studying counterpoint will not serve you well in a music theory perspective. So it's very, very much a learning process for him. And still, some of the stuff that he does could absolutely incorporate that. He's more of a kind of a death metal kid, very getting really good too. He's a player. Oh, and Susan's channel on YouTube is at Dusty Guitar Music. And she also, if you are in a choir and you're looking for new music for your choral stuff, go to dustyguitarmusic.com. She largely writes for choral stuff, and very cool. She's put out some very cool work. All right, so that's me bragging about my awesome students. I've got a lot of other awesome students, but those are my counterpoint students, and so they're in their special counterpoint club. And I'm sure more students will join that as time goes on. Okay. Nonetheless, 66th album, Schizenoid Paraphrenic. Let's move along. This next song is called The Curse. Oh, what did I get wrong? Which window's highlighted? Oh, yep. That's right. My cameras were messed up. Okay, here we go. Randy being an airhead right out of the gate. Here's The Curse. Gaiden X Gaming coming in from YouTube. I haven't seen you for a while. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for coming in for our new album day. Schizenoid Paraphrenic. That term was come up with by my awesome daughter. She's named a lot of my songs and albums. I think this is some of her better work. It says, kind of went with the whole insanity mindset through this with song titles and stuff. It's been a very fun one to put together from my perspective. As a lot of my regulars know, I spent a lot of extra time on my 65th album, which I'm going to be playing as soon as this is over. I'm going to do 2 albums, Schizenoid Paraphrenic and also Incomprehensible Isolation. So on Incomprehensible Isolation, spent about 2 1/3 years on that. And the production was a real problem because I'd never been really satisfied with my production, so I just needed to figure out how to get to where I wanted to be production-wise. And it was a long journey, and it was great, and I'm very happy with the way things turned out. So I was able to essentially transfer all of that production knowledge onto this album, except for one thing. I recorded the other one with my green Ibanez Sabre, and I recorded this one with my black Ibanez Sabre. And the guitars sounded drastically different. So then I had to, and this was, the past couple months, was really just working, how do I get those guitars to sound right? They didn't sound bad by any means. And Ray and I, my buddy Ray, we had sat and done a bunch of production work together, and he's got really great ears. And he's like, what about the way this sounds? What about the way that sounds? The guitars sound like they're kind of interfering with the cymbals a little bit. He's just really good at picking that stuff out. And so we did this. So I got to the new one. I'm like, okay, now I just got to tweak this guitar. So I really had to learn a lot about tweaking little subtle settings to get the guitars to sound right. And they don't sound exactly the same. I don't necessarily want them to sound exactly the same, but it got the right feel finally. And that's awesome. Obscure Mysticism Cult says, loving the continually added orchestral textures really adds a great deal to the sound. Brilliant. Thank you very much. And that's in many ways probably a bigger compliment than you recognize, because a lot of the orchestral elements have been there throughout even a lot of my older albums, but the production quality didn't allow it to come through. And what happened on album 65 was I was listening to the song Fistful of Light. This was a game-changing song for me because I realized that there were these little subtle things going on in the orchestration that I was unable to hear. And I'm like, it would add a lot to the song. So what I was looking for in the production was how to get the clarity out of it while still maintaining the aggression that we need from, this type of metal. And fortunately, that did work out. So yeah, thank you very much. I'm glad that's coming through. That makes me really happy. Recursive Trauma says, baby's doing well, spending a lot of time playing acoustic nursery. So that's awesome, yeah. Waltz of the Robins by Fernando Sor is popular. I love me some Fernando Sor. Yeah, I've been practicing a bit more classical guitar. I may be having an in-person show, a private show coming up this summer on classical guitar. So getting my chops back in order for that. And I'm a big fan of Fernando Sor. I play Etude in B minor by Sor, and also the Grand Solo, which is such an awesome piece. And I often do the Grand Solo by Fernando Sor and the Grand Solo by Napoleon Costa back to back. Sor was Costa's teacher, and they both wrote a Grand Solo, and they're great pieces of music. And they don't have great names like my next song does, though. And this one, I can't really say we're at the G sharp minor portion of the show, but this song does go into G sharp minor. This one kind of moves around a lot. It's E minor, A minor, G sharp minor, B flat minor. There might be 1 or 2 other keys in there. This one really jumps around a lot. And it's very fun to compose stuff like that. It's like, okay, if I'm moving from, A minor into, or I think it actually starts in A Dorian. So I'm going from A Dorian to G sharp Aeolian. Okay, now how am I going to transfer that through? What note do I want to kind of pivot around? Very fun stuff. Nonetheless, let's do this. This song is called Object of the Deepest Scorn. All right. Object of the deepest scorn. Well, I said right there as I was starting that song that I really couldn't refer to it as the G sharp minor portion of the show, but you know what? On this song, ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived at the G sharp minor portion of the show. Firmly ensconced in G sharp minor, this song is called Barfing Blood from My Eyes. As I was playing that, I was kind of noticing that I made Some interesting use of major sixth chords in there, which is a less metal sounding chord. I think of the major sixes as more of kind of like a Chuck Berry kind of a... kind of a, rock and blues kind of a thing. The minor six is much more common as more metal context. So that's kind of a more of a metal kind of thing. But the major six I used in there they were working for me. I was digging it. More music theory nerd stuff. All right, and again, yes, thank you all very much for coming out, for the claps and the compliments and the questions, and just for being here and watching and listening and smelling what I do. Much appreciated. For those who may not be aware, I am the Mad Poet. You are an audience. We are the Mad Poet Society. Today we are playing my 66th album for the first time publicly. The album is titled Schizenoid Paraphrenic. I see I do got a new follower on Twitch, JRock88. I don't know if you're actually watching. We were speaking last night on Reddit. He had messaged me and asked if he could use some of my music as background music for his streams. And I said, yeah, absolutely. I'm always happy to share like that. I like helping people out where I can. We're going to slow it down here a little bit. Get into some F sharp minor. Approximately 97 beats per minute tempo. Still don't know what's going on with that. I think that's the guitar. I think that my input jack, well, actually it would be an output jack, might be coming a touch loose there. I'll have to grab the soldering stuff and jump in and take care of that. Nonetheless, we're slowing it down a bit. F sharp minor. And this is one to think on. Oh, JRock88 is watching. Just popped in, actually. Sounding awesome. Thanks very much, and thanks for the follow. Glad you're here, and I do intend to check out one of your streams, particularly if you're going to be using my music for. That'll make me feel really good. So, here's one to think on. This song is titled, Are You Sure You're Not a Product of My Imagination? Okay. Cameras. Doing a bad job with the cameras on this album. You know, the funny thing is, I went through some of the, had this last camera should be on camera number 1 thing, and I found all these places. So I went through and I corrected like a whole bunch of them. I think it was yesterday, it might have been the day before. And then I just kind of assumed that I got it right on the brand new one, and I didn't go through and check them. So that was totally on me right there, 100%. Okay, we're moving up on the title track of the album here, Schizenoid Paraphrenic, named by my daughter. This one is dedicated to my buddy Richard. Richard, I don't know if you're out there, I don't know if you made it into the show today. I hope you're out there watching. The album is available on Bandcamp now. I published the album just as I started up the show. And so if anyone wants to download this, it is available on a pay-what-you-can basis. You can get it for free, or you can pay me any price you want, $10, $5, $52,000. I'll accept all of those or other numbers because I'm nice. Nonetheless, this one's going out to Richard. Richard and I used to be in a theater project together, and it was freaking awesome. And he's just this really energetic guy, really fun to be around. Very cool. And I think that the feel of this song is going to appeal very much to my man Richard. This is in F minor, 140 beats a minute. We're ripping it up. Schizenoid Paraphrenic. And I did my camera thing again and forgot to switch my applications. My input jack's going crazy. Here we are. Totally appropriate for Schizenoid Paraphrenia. Schizenoid Paraphrenic. That is a really fun song to play. That truly is. That rips. If I do say so myself. And I do. This is a longer album. This one is, I think, my second longest album to date. So this may end up being my longest show, considering that I'm playing this and Incomprehensible Isolation, which is also, that's kind of averagely. My average album is usually about 55 minutes. I believe that Incomprehensible Isolation is 56 and some change. This one's, I think, about an hour and 3 minutes, so it's a little longer. It has 11 songs on it. So we're going to be here for a while. Relax, enjoy, or, don't relax and don't enjoy, or any combination there, or do something else. I'm not here to tell you how to live your life. You do your own thing, baby. You do your own thing. Whatever you do it well. Hopefully I'm doing okay here. I feel like I'm doing all right. I'm kind of hungry. Haven't eaten yet today. That's not a surprise. Started a little bit early. But, I don't usually eat until 1 in the afternoon anyway, so I'm not terribly far behind. We're getting some C sharp minor on this one. This is called When You Can't Sleep. What do we got coming up here? Oh, we're getting into a wrong camera again. That would be camera 2. That would be camera 1. This would be camera 1 with a zoom. 3 with a zoom. 4 with a zoom. And that's all I got. And now you know. This song, we're going to get into some triplet action. This is something I really like to do, and I like doing an interplay between what's known as triplet time and straight time. So you're counting in 3s or you're counting in 4s. And it's fun because you can make it feel like a piece of music is changing speeds when the actual tempo is staying relatively the same. Or exactly the same. I don't have these... there's a way of kind of aligning everything to a grid, and I do program my drums, and generally we think of drums as being grid aligned. Mine are, but I've found a way to basically misalign my grid, which is, it adds a really cool bit of feel to, I feel like I've done it well. Of course, you know, there are people who have thought that they were doing the bullet catch with the teeth well, and their heads got blown off. So mine's a little safer, but hopefully I'm doing it reasonably well. So one of the things I find my main hobby, also my career, fortunately for me, is playing guitar, and it's one that's very unlikely to cause serious injury or death. So it's a fairly safe bit of playing around that I do with my life. Of course, I'm also a hunter, so there are still possibilities. I still go out on my runs in the middle of the desert. I could be attacked by a badger. Pretty unlikely. Badgers don't come out a lot during the day. I've seen a few of them out there. Badgers are pretty cool, but I wouldn't want to fight one. There was one place on my normal run. There's this gravel road I run down for about a mile before I turn off onto another road. And there was this pile of gravel off on the side, and I noticed that a fresh badger hole had been dug in it. I'm like, you know what, I'll just run on the other side of the road at this point. It's not like, out where I live in the middle of nowhere, it's not like I got to worry about, oh gosh, is there any cars coming? I still look because I like to not be stupid. But, I might get out of the edge of town, and I might be out of town for an hour and not see anyone else. It's awesome. Nonetheless, we're going to get into some triplet, straight time, switcheroo, change-a-rooney kind of thing. Make sure I got the correct application going. This one is called Lost at Sea. Totally doing a terrible job with my cameras here. This might be some of my worst camera work. We're going to slow it back down here. We're getting to song number 9. There are 11 songs on this album. Then we'll switch over and play Incomprehensible Isolation, which has Fistful of Light on it, which, as I mentioned earlier, was a very pivotal piece for me. Maybe one of my favorite pieces just because of what it did for me as an audio engineer. It did a lot to bring me to where I'm at. I have a much deeper understanding of audio engineering, general music production, and it's definitely because of that. But we're going to slow it down here a little bit. We're going to get some G minor. Then we're going to pick it right back up for the final 2 songs of the album. This one is called When the Light Begins to Fade. think I'm going to switch out my batteries. They're safe right now, but it'd be best if I didn't Didn't run them out. Might be the cable. It was good to have spare batteries around when you're using a wireless. I have run out in the middle of songs before. It's always exciting. So it is not the jack on the guitar. Interesting. Okay, well, attention will have to be paid in the near future to what's going on there. So these last two songs, nice and upbeat for this album. And again, I appreciate everybody coming in. If you're not familiar with who I am or what we do, I am the Mad Poet. You are an audience. We are the Mad Poet Society. And this is what we do. We make music. We talk about stuff. That's about it. Pretty much my whole life. In keeping with our Schizenoid Paraphrenic theme, this song is titled, I Thought I Was Someone Else. Cameras. Airhead. That's the Mad Poet. All right, last song of the album. Thank you very much for coming on this premiere journey with me for my 66th album. I've had a great time. After this, we're going to be switching over playing album number 65. And I'm almost certain this will be the longest show I've done. I think I've never quite broken the 3-hour mark. I'm pretty sure we're going to today. It's a strong possibility. This last song, I felt like, because it took me 2 1/3 years to do Incomprehensible Isolation, another third of a year to do this album, that we should double up on it. So ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived at the second G-sharp minor portion of this album. This song is called Destroy It. Destroy It All. Cameras. Okay. Let's do the changeover here. Actually, one of the things I was concerned about with the changeover was that I'd go back and forth between basically two tabs in my recording program. And in the old days when I was first experimenting this, that would cause problems. And just going back and forth. And I found out what that was, but I was still just kind of nervous about just those possibilities. And so last night I ended up giving that a crazy amount of testing because I was setting things up for this album. So I was going back and forth, doing all kinds of stuff. And I must have went back and forth like 50 times, so nothing went wrong. So that's one that I can start to get out of my head, hopefully, that I actually have a problem with that. And changeovers are becoming a little smoother. Let's get that sheet music up and running again. Rewire. Rewire is a protocol I use to have my recording program control another program, which in this case is my sheet music program. And I actually use it for the lights and the cameras as well. So that's all, like the headquarters of everything is in my recording program. And oh, yeah. Okay, I should be back now. And yeah, so like the recording program basically runs everything. And seems to work out. I think I may have a rogue light going here. First rogue light of the day. Thank you, the Mad Poet Lighting crew. Let's see what we can do with this. Are we in the right place? Let's make sure we got everything correct. So this is my 65th album. And we are in the right place. Good. Okay. This is called Incomprehensible Isolation. And that name, a lot of people have kind of had the conjecture that that's coming from the whole pandemic lockdown thing. Oh, the isolation was incomprehensible. That is not it at all. I actually hardly noticed that there was a lockdown because I'm an introvert and I would rather just stay here and do my own thing. Sarah is also an introvert, so we're good. We're just locked away in our cozy little home and the rest of the world is going crazy and we are not. It was awesome for us. So where it actually came from was a guy named Michael. He goes by Ragnarok, ends with R-A-W-K, Ragnarok. He's also a streamer on Twitch. Hasn't been very active lately. I doubt he's watching today, but the first time I went to his stream on his informational bio thing, had this kind of poetic little bit of, it was actually prose, but very poetically written, and it ended with the term incomprehensible isolation. I'm like, dude, I'm stealing that for an album title. He's like, cool. And so yeah, that's where that actually comes from. And this first song is the title track of the song, and it is titled, obviously, Incomprehensible Isolation. a better mental note that I need to turn off the main lights before I start the song when I do the switch over. That one I've missed quite a few times. I think that's my kind of my big sticking point right now, and that really made me screw that song up in a few places. My bad. All right. Obscure Mysticism Cults earlier was mentioning that he really liked the background strings and stuff. And I particularly like, when I listen to this album, this next song is one where I really like to kind of tune my ears in to the background string section. I feel like it really is a very significant component of what's going on with this particular song. This one is called A Silent Prophet. Wow. I think like 80% of my final camera positions have been wrong on these two. This is amazing. It's good to screw things up that much. Makes you think about what you're doing. So we're coming into some C sharp minor action here. This is the song I was talking about earlier when we were playing the last album. It's called A Fistful of Light. It's subtitled The Run. And that came much later. This was the song that, as I said, as I was listening to it, I realized I wanted to hear the other parts. They were getting buried because of the production. And where I really realized that was when I would listen to this while I was out on a run. And so this kind of became my running song. And the reason this is my song for running is not because it gets me pumped up for running. It's got a good feel for it, but what I realized about this song is that if a person were to say, Randy, why do you like running so much? My best answer is, listen to A Fistful of Light. That's how it feels when I run. This is the right mental framework. At least to me. I don't know if anyone else would get that, but there's a part in this. It's about 11 and a half minutes long. 11 and a third, 11 and a half minutes long. And about 10 minutes in, about a minute and a half before the end, there's a part where I come down, changes the feel of the song, and I do this thing in the Mixolydian mode of the C sharp minor. And at that part, the way that feels like cresting a hill on a run out in the desert, and then it's just open, the sky is huge, and it's the view in front. That's exactly what that feels like. And just the way this, it starts off high energy, it kind of has some ebb and flow to it. It has some lower parts with the clean tone guitars, jumps back up, and it moves all over the place. We got tempo changes, we got key changes, we're going back and forth between C sharp minor and A minor in this. This is what it feels like when I run. So I run for a lot longer than 11 minutes when I'm out there. I usually run for about as long as one of my albums take, about 50 minutes to an hour is my normal run. It's usually about 6 or 7 miles is what I do out there. And this is it. Fistful of Light, The Run. That song does it for me. I've never been shy about the fact that I am not a religious believer. I think people should believe whatever they want. But here's one thing I find. I don't believe in any gods or any devils or demons. I don't believe in any kind of spirituality or anything supernatural or otherworldly. But I know this, if the devil's real, whether you believe in him or not, the devil believes in you. Have some more water here. I think this is, without a doubt, the worst I've ever done on setting up my final camera positions. These two albums together have been absolutely terrible. All right, what do we got coming up here? Oh yes, this song here. It's titled "Something in My Eye." It's dedicated to my friend Clarissa, who I've known for many, many years. And this one is so named. There's a painter I really like named Michael Whelan. And he was very well known for doing a lot of like fantasy and science fiction book covers. Kind of back in the 80s and 90s was his real kind of heyday. And did a few album covers. I think he did some Sepultura album covers, a few metal bands he did album covers for. Just very cool work. I really like his style. I've got a few of his books. There's one coffee table book that's titled "Something in My Eye." And the cover picture of it is this painting he did of this kind of punk rock looking dude. And he's, pushing into his eye like he's got something in his eye, but he's pushed so far that both eyeballs are in one socket and the fingers like coming through. And my friend Clarissa always really liked that picture. I always had it sitting out on my coffee table, and she just really got a kick out of that. So this is kind of a tribute to Michael Whelan and a song dedicated to my friend Clarissa all at once. Clarissa, I hope you're doing awesome out there. This is "Something in My Eye." Hey, I got the camera right. Yay me! Oh, Renee's on! Awesome. Yeah, I know. My daughter is an adult. Poor thing. I owe my daughter an apology because she's an adult. That sucks. So much better being a kid. And so I know she's busy and she doesn't often get to tune in, but it's great seeing you here. Thanks so much for tuning in and being a part of it. We just played Schizenoid, the whole album Schizenoid Paraphrenic, which she named because she comes up with awesome song titles and album titles. She's just awesome. My daughter is better than all the other daughters. That's the way it is. She's my favorite of all my one kids, so that's awesome. And she's also my favorite of all of the kids that have ever lived because I just make awesome babies. Well, I don't make awesome babies anymore because I can't make babies anymore. It is my fault. It is totally 100% my fault. I take full responsibility. Wish I could fix it. I wish I could fix the world with a big magic wand, but I'm freaking out of magic wands. There's no magic wands here. But yes, thanks for coming in. Love you, kid. You're awesome. Glad you could stop in at least for a little bit. This next song is in F Phrygian. I've talked a bit about B flat minor. It's a relative key, so it's the same notes as B flat minor. And this one, I was watching a Twitch streamer who went by the Drum Daddy at the time. He now goes by Renegade Rock. Maybe I got that backward. He's the Drum Daddy now. Anyway, he's a drummer, and he also wears a vest, tie, and sunglasses. And he's very cool. His name is Stuart, and he suggested that I watch this guy called the Reluctant Hermit, whose real name is Jabeth, which is a really cool name. And as soon as he said the Reluctant Hermit, I'm like, dude, that's a song title. And here it is. So, hat tip to my people, Jabeth and Stuart. This song is called The Reluctant Hermit. All right. That looks like Renee had to take off and go make more pizzas. If you're still listening at all, thanks for coming in. Hope you have a great day. This next song, I was just after I put out my 64th album, I was doing an online show. I think I was only streaming to Twitch at the time. And a random person named Sarah Jazz came in, and I just happened to be telling the story of how I got my saxophone. And she, just as I was finishing that story, she came and was like, "Oh, I was hoping to see you play the saxophone." And I said, "I'll tell you what, on my next album, I'm going to do a song with saxophone in it." And I did. And it's this song. And there's no saxophone in it. And what happened was, I wrote this song with the idea of playing saxophone. And really liked the way it came out. So, with, just the actual non-saxophone part, all the ensemble part. So I recorded a saxophone part in there, and it worked. It was good. I really liked the way it felt. It wouldn't have been I would have re-recorded the actual saxophone part. Wasn't up to snuff, so to speak. I liked the song as it was, but when I put the song into the album, and I would listen to it in between The Reluctant Hermit and Waiting for Time, it sucked. It was like going from Slayer to Kenny G, and then back to Slayer, right? It's like it just did not work at all. Kind of unfortunate, because it was a nice little piece with the saxophone in it. And so I was like, what am I going to do? I'm like, well, let me just record a guitar part on it. So I recorded this guitar part with this kind of light distortion. I'm like, that's it. That's it. And then they're like, excuse me. When I was working on the production of this, one thing I really like to do is I like to assess the sound of my music while I'm out on a run. So I'd pop it in my headphones, go out on a run. And I listened to this album so much that it went from liking it and wanting to change the production, to working on it, liking the production, to absolutely hating the album, and then back to liking. Because I was listening to this like every day on my run for months on end. Just like, okay, how does this sound now? How does this sound now? It was kind of crazy. And once I got to the point where I'd go out on my runs, I'm just like, this is all awesome. Then I kind of knew I was there. And this song, after I recorded the guitar, it's just like every time I was out on my run, this song would come up, and it would just be like, yes, I'm so glad I went back to the guitar on this. So kind of apologies to Sarah out there. I didn't even tell her this was going on today, so I doubt she's watching. But in a way, I kind of felt bad, because this whole song was inspired by her and her desire for me to play the saxophone on the stream that one time. So to date, she has still never heard me play saxophone, which is kind of a shame. I should practice my sax more. It's sitting back, you probably can't even hardly see it, right? Kind of shining there a little bit. I hardly ever touch my saxophone. I love the saxophone. It's a fun instrument, and I don't play it nearly enough. I really should. I should put it in a more convenient location, and then I should just do it. There you go. Boom. Nonetheless, how are we doing on time here? We've been about 2 hours, 2 2/3 hours. Not bad, not bad. We got 3 songs left. We're gonna play this. This is a nice slow piece. I want to pick it back up with Waiting for Time, and then we're gonna get into the only cover tune I've ever included on an album, which is Three Blind Mice. And I love my cover of Three Blind Mice. And then I'm gonna go eat. Yes. This piece is called Unknown Acquaintances and Lonely Strangers. All right. We're getting back into F minor. Notice I've got a bit of a F minor thing going on over these last couple albums. I do like F minor a lot. I like the way it looks on the fretboard. My eyes flow well when visualizing the F minor various positions that I use, positions and alterations. And this one, again, back on my very early days of streaming, I was playing and a random person came. I don't know if Sonny McE was actually a streamer. Came in and I said, "Hey, what's going on?" And they said, "Just waiting for time." And I'm like, "Dude, that's a song title." This particular album has a lot of inspired song titles to it, which is really cool. And I don't know whatever happened to Sonny McE. I told them that I was gonna, I said, "Hey, let me know your real name." They said, "Sonny McE is fine," because I always recognize people in my songs when they contribute that way. And then Sonny McE is no longer, as near as I can tell, no longer on Twitch at all. I don't know who this person really is. I don't know if it's male, female, indifferent, confused, or whoever, whatever. But wherever you are out there, I hope you're doing well. And the funny thing about it is I'm like, oh, that's such a cool idea for a song title. I've actually got one song that I recorded with my friend Deirdre, who is occasionally in chat with us. And it's called The Anaphora of Time. And the whole thing is just, it's waiting for time is actually the primary lyric that repeats. I'm like, I've used this as a lyric, and I never thought to use it as a song title until Sonny McE came in and said, waiting for time. So, hat tip to Sonny McE, wherever you are, hope you're doing well. Waiting for time. Okay. I believe my longest stream, last longest one I did, it was about 2 hours 50 minutes. So we're just passing that up, going into longest stream territory here. And we got one piece left. Just one. And this one I so enjoy listening to. The way this came out just made me very, very happy. I'm so pleased with the way it happened. This is my version of heavy metal variations of Three Blind Mice. And this one was actually inspired by Glenn Fricker, who has a fairly popular YouTube channel for music production. And he had put out the thing, he was thinking about doing a songwriting contest or a cover tune contest. And he'd had some trouble with cover tune contest, as is common, unfortunately, because of copyright law. And a lot of copyright law is, I think, used in the wrong way. Cover tunes are awesome. There is some unfortunate history behind why cover tunes are legal. I don't want to go into the whole aspect of it right here, but cover tunes are awesome, and so often you get these pedantic attorneys at these record labels that just want to come out and throw their power around. So they crap all over these cover tune contests and, you know, really legitimate use of music in a lot of ways. It's very unfortunate. So I suggested to Glenn, I'm like, you know, hey, I sent him an email saying, have you ever thought of doing a public domain cover tune contest? You know, old songs that are now, we all own it. Everybody owns Three Blind Mice. I own this particular version of it, the way copyright law works, but anyone can do their own version of Three Blind Mice. The piece was written in 1609. It's in the public domain everywhere in the world, so anyone can take this and do whatever they want. He didn't end up using that idea, but he did, you know, he responded back and said, that's a really cool idea. So, and out of that, I was like, if I was going to do a public domain cover tune, Three Blind Mice was just like right into my brain right away. And so I started working on that and ended up releasing it on this album. So yeah, I know that I sent Glenn a copy of it. I don't know if he ever had a chance to listen to it or whatever. I hope that he enjoyed it. I hope that you enjoy it. I've had a good time. I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you enjoyed the new album, which is available now on Bandcamp. Links in many of my websites in many of the platforms I'm going to. And so yeah, I haven't put it up on the madpoet.net yet, but it will be going up there probably this afternoon. I'm definitely going to eat next. That's going to be the next thing that happens for sure. And then after that, yeah, probably going to put that up. I'll put it up on YouTube. But go check that out. The madpoet.net, repository of all things Mad Poet. Check out my 66 albums. I'm very proud of the fact that I have accomplished that. And to finish out the night, or day, or morning, or afternoon, or evening, or wherever you are, whatever time it is, whatever you do, whoever you are, whatever you are, this is Heavy Metal Variations of Three Blind Mice. Now I got vocals. Oh, I've just been yakking and no one could hear me. Doesn't matter. All right. Go to themadpoet.net, repository of all things Mad Poet. Check out more of my music. I will be back tomorrow doing another couple albums. Don't know which albums. It'll be a little later in the day because I do teach. But right now, it's time for eats because I have not eaten yet today. So that's going to happen.